Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's event. I'm Laura Dillon from MS Dynamics World, and we're here today for a session to learn all about the two most popular Dynamics 365 integrations. Our presenters today are both with DBSync. We have Connor Evans and Avinash Rao, and it's my pleasure to welcome them here with us today. So as we get started, please know that we do welcome your questions. You can feel free to type those in at any time during their presentation in the little chat box that you'll see in your GoToWebinar dashboard, and someone from their team will follow up with you individually after the session. So Connor, without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to you to get us started.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Laura. Really appreciate the introduction. So welcome everyone to today's presentation on the two most popular Dynamics 365 integrations. This is brought to you by DBSync. We're an integration company with over a decade of experience automating business processes between many different systems. And before we dive into the presentation, we wanted to provide you with a brief overview of what we'll be covering. In this presentation, we're going to review the two most popular integrations for Dynamics 365. These include automations between Dynamics 365 and accounting systems, in this case, Dynamics 365 and QuickBooks, as well as Dynamics 365 and e-commerce applications. In this case, we're going to be focusing on Shopify. We'll cover why these integrations are beneficial for organizations, what common challenges companies can run into when implementing an integration, some solutions and best practices we found in working with thousands of customers, and some case studies and examples of real scenarios we've encountered along the way. Now, to give you a little background on who we are, my name's Connor. I'm the head of the Microsoft division at DBSync. I've been helping Dynamics customers find the appropriate integration solution for a little over 5 years now. This includes everything from legacy Dynamics CRM on-premise and online prior to the advent of 365 to Dynamics GP and even Dynamics Nav. My colleague Avinash is also on the call today. And Avinash, can you share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Thanks, Connor. Once again, thanks one and all for joining this session with us today. This is Avinash, and I'm one of the senior engineers at DBSync. And I've been with the company for a little over 10 years now. I've got to pinch myself. I currently serve in the capacity as a director for professional services. I oversee all service engagements across our product lines, and I'm also responsible for building pre-built solutions across entire connector portfolio of DBSync. In my tenure, we have collectively delivered over 1,000 integration projects across various systems, databases, APIs, and even business streams, right? So that is a little introduction about myself. And from the slide deck, I think it is pretty evident, other than working for the same company, Connor and I do seem to share similar interests, especially when it comes to hairdos. Over to you, Connor.
Thanks, Avinash. So perfect. Let's give you a little bit of background on DBSync now that we've covered ourselves. We've been in business for well over a decade, and we were originally actually started as a part of a Salesforce incubation. This is where we developed our first CRM and accounting automation, and we began to expand our integration portfolio and partner with many other solution providers from there. You can see a few of them on the screen. If you go to our website, you'll actually be able to see a full list of our partners and connectors that we offer. Now, we've been recognized and covered by the likes of Gartner and Forrester, G2 Crowd, and Capterra. And for 2 years running now, we've been among the fastest growing private companies in the US by Inc. 5000. If you check us out on any of the many review sites like AppExchange, Microsoft's AppSource, or the Intuit Marketplace, you'll see we're one of the best and most highly reviewed integration partners. On the Microsoft side, we're a preferred solution for both QuickBooks and Shopify integration. And in the Intuit Marketplace, we're actually the only solution that they've vetted and approved to be listed for Dynamics integrations. We've got partnerships with the top CRM and ERP providers. And with regards to Microsoft, we've actually been a silver partner for a bit over 8 years now, as well as an ISV partner. We have offices in the Bay Area, Nashville, and Bangalore, as well as many folks like myself. I actually work remote, and I'm out of the Atlanta area. And at this point, we have over 800 customers using DBSync to automate their digital business. And that actually looks like a number of different things for different folks. But today we'll be focusing on the two most popular integrations for Dynamics 365. So what are those integrations? Well, if we're going to broadly categorize them, they're CRM and accounting integration, and CRM or accounting integration with e-commerce. Now, that being said, on the CRM and accounting side, hands down the most popular integration is between Dynamics 365 and QuickBooks, though we do get other integration requests like Sage Intacct. With regards to e-commerce, things are a little bit different because we see really heavy interest in integrating both the CRM modules for Dynamics, think Dynamics 365 for sales, and the accounting modules, think Business Central and Finance and Operations. That being said, while we integrate several e-commerce solutions like WooCommerce or Channel Advisor and TradeGecko, we get the most requests for Shopify by far. So let's talk a little bit about what the Dynamics 365 and QuickBooks integration looks like and who it's for. Well, it's pretty straightforward. This integration is for anyone who's using both Dynamics 365 and QuickBooks, either desktop or online. Now, when folks are using both these systems, there's a pretty common set of challenges that need to be addressed. For one, they're likely managing their leads and sales pipeline in Dynamics, leveraging opportunities. At a certain point, these opportunities would be marked as closed won. Think of your typical sales cycle. Now, without any integration, it's an entirely manual process wherein you'd need to send that information to your accounting staff and have them rekey it into QuickBooks. This not only takes a ton of time itself, but it can lend itself to errors. Think about how many opportunities for data entry errors there are over the course of a week with just 10 invoices. That's 10 customers with all of their information, 10 addresses, 10 numbers, 10 points of contact, 10 products, 10 or more line items. And if you multiply this over the course of a year, you can see how that really adds up. We find that folks end up spending even more time trying to catch and fix the errors they make doing this data entry than the data error itself as well. So what does the ideal solution and outcome look like? When companies come to us, most of the time they want to get their opportunity and order data out of Dynamics and into QuickBooks. And this needs to be done in a way that is totally automated so that as many human touch points are reduced as possible. This saves them an enormous amount of time between double data entry and to fixing errors related to it. And that's time that they can now spend focusing on growing their business. So Avinash, can you maybe talk a little bit about what a typical Dynamics 365 and QuickBooks integration looks like?
Absolutely. And that was quite insightful, Connor. Yeah, look, when you look at this in a diagram, it is kind of self-explanatory, but we're going to sort of do a deep dive into it in the course of the session. Well, a little word on Dynamics 365 CRM and QuickBooks, automated solution. It is actually one of our most popular integrations, more so with QuickBooks users, and we'll see why. We've actually carefully crafted out this template, and over time it has been through several iterations, and no wonder it happens to be one of the most used solution templates across a variety of CRMs and accounting integrations, more so with Dynamics 365 and QuickBooks. It automates a very well-known use case, code to cash or order to cash data flow between 365 CRM and QuickBooks. Mind you, this works with both versions of QuickBooks. The way we would differentiate QuickBooks is if it is online or it is desktop. You have several editions within those, but from a behavioral standpoint, it won't change much other than how you invoke these integrations, right? So how do we read this diagram? So imagine this as a day in the life of a sales rep using CRM and an accountant using QuickBooks or your bookkeeper, right? Going about their routine pretty much in parallel. Now, if you want to sort of increase the complexity, what happens in an organization, imagine a team of people across different geography, on either side of the system, right? What would your rep do? Typically, anyone who logs into logs in at work, he or she would be pursuing a given opportunity. And eventually, when the good news comes along saying, look, I'm ready to buy, and you mark the opportunity as closed one, right? So this is all happening in your CRM. So at this point in time, the sale that has happened, once the documents are executed, you need to account for that sale in your QuickBooks, right? So the automation provides the ability to sort of trigger the sync from your CRM to QuickBooks, and it ensures the translation of the opportunity or invoice data in your Dynamics, and it creates a receivable transaction, right? This is all income to the company, hence we call it as receivable automation also. So here we're not just syncing invoices, are we? It is doing a specific task. As you can see from the data flow, it also creates your customer data, and it is also creating your item. All both of this is paramount, because you can't create an invoice without these pre-existing. So what does it tell you? So it is it's not just creating invoices, it is creating these two data ahead of time, and these jobs are sequenced out that way, right? So thus pretty much completing the integration. That is the first iteration of this sync. Now, once the sync has happened, meaning your invoices are created, mind you, you can create a final invoice or even a pending invoice, meaning an unposted one. The accounting cycle kicks in your QuickBooks. You go through that cycle of adding a payment, partial or full payment, maybe voiding an invoice, or maybe issuing a refund. All these incremental updates that are happening on the QuickBooks side, we will ensure the sync is, that data is synced back to CRM. So, what happens, while it is doing is it is giving you visibility across the board. So your reps and your accountants are not exchanging emails or even phone calls or Excel spreadsheets. So, so that way, it's a lot more efficient. Let's have a quick look at some of the benefits of having such a solution automated, or a use case rather. The obvious ones, as you can see, is it gives you better insights, like I mentioned. It increases greater visibility for your sales. Now, he or she can look at all their pipelines and opportunities and know right away that which customer has paid in full, which customer owes you what. That way it is a lot more scalable. So that kind of increases visibility across CRM as well as QuickBooks. Your reps can sell more efficiently, right? Because you have all the analytics or data in your CRM, their buying patterns, etc. So thus sort of reducing the whole sales to payment life cycle, from weeks to days. Now, the other functional aspect of this is it can easily be extended to other modules in QuickBooks. I think if you know, there's AP automation with Dynamics, right? And you can also extend the same to journal entries and so on. We've seen over time, especially with our customers, kind of more so on the accounting side, this kind of operational efficiency goes up by 40% as they get used to the system. So it has a lot of benefits from that standpoint. Now, the other bit is better reporting. Why do you want all this accounting data in your CRM? Well, you can leverage all the reporting capabilities of your CRM and also make better forecasting reports, and thus making better decisions overall from an organization point of view.
Perfect. Thanks, Avinash. So why don't we take a look at an actual real world example of what one of these integrations might look like. So this is National Maintenance and Construction. They're a full service residential and commercial construction and handyman firm. They came to us in the midst of implementing Dynamics 365 Field Service, and they had already been using QuickBooks to manage their accounting. So what's really cool about these types of integrations is you're not just limited to 365 for sales. We do personally integrate with Field Service, Project Service Automation, a lot of the other modules as well. So this particular firm had been searching and found several different companies who do these types of integrations, but none that could really handle the scale of the integration they needed and meet all of their needs. On a high level, they really needed a bidirectional integration between Dynamics and QuickBooks. And that's one that would sync customers, invoices, vendors, and bills from Dynamics to QuickBooks, as well as sync bill payments from QuickBooks to Dynamics. Our solution comprised of implementing DBSync's cloud workflow platform with our Dynamics and QuickBooks connectors. This also included the flexibility of integrating custom objects that they'd implemented in their Dynamics instance. So you're not limited to just standard entities or objects. And the integration was able to automate their full service to cash cycle as well as their vendor payments. So what did this mean for national maintenance? Well, because we leveraged our pre-existing templates and expanded upon them to meet their requirements, we were able to get them up and running, tested in their sandbox, and fully live and deployed in their production environment within 2 weeks of the project kickoff. This integration saved them on average about 25 hours per week of reconciliation and data entry work. And as a result, their overall accounting operational efficiency was greatly improved. Now let's shift gears and talk about our other most popular integration for Dynamics 365. And this one's a bit different from 365 and QuickBooks integrations because we get a lot of folks using Business Central and Finance and Operations wanting to integrate Shopify as well as CRM users. So who is this for? Again, very straightforward. Anyone using Dynamics CRM or ERPs and Shopify. And there's a unique set of challenges we find with this set of folks that they face that bring them to want these types of integrations. In the case of Dynamics CRM modules, most of the time they want to bring over their customers with their order information, and that way they can leverage Dynamics for marketing automation. A lot of the time we find that they're used to running manual exports and imports of customer data to achieve this, and it's just not efficient at all. With regards to Dynamics ERP users, they often want to get orders from Shopify so that they can have a full view of their business on the accounting side. And this includes their e-commerce channel, which they'd be running through Shopify. The ideal solution and outcome in either scenario is an automated integration that's going to carry over their order, customer, and product data, as well as leave room for additional flexibility based on their use case. For example, some folks want to manage inventory in Dynamics when they're using Shopify for their B2C channel and Dynamics for their B2B channel, but we can expand more on this later. Avinash, would you mind walking us through a typical data flow for Dynamics and Shopify integration?
Absolutely. Well, what you see on your screens is a typical data flow. This is again a plug and play template or a solution as we call it. Now, while it is not so different from the one you saw with QuickBooks a little while ago, it differs in few aspects, as you can see. The integration here is sort of driven by Shopify. It is treated as a system of record or master data, as they call it, from an integration point of view. And it is used as a master data for all your order capture and order management, and even for customers, right? All these templates that we build, any integrations that we do within these systems, we ensure we sort of look at the market trend and how customers across a spectrum tend to use these systems in tandem, right? What are the different processes involved? And we try and bake those automations and processes into a solution like this. As one would know, all business processes are subject to change. It is unique to every business. But the endeavor here is to ensure the template at least addresses the base layer, using which more customizations can be built, using that as a reference. What we also seen with this particular solution, Connor did touch upon that a little while ago, is within a few days of our customers using this template, we see them come back to us and then they want us to add their accounting, more so with QuickBooks users. They want to add QuickBooks also into the mix, right? And there's a reason why that happens. So it's not necessarily just a two-way integration. It can be a three-way, four-way integration also. Pretty much you're orchestrating data movement and automating different processes across all these different systems. So at no point, people would want to just integrate orders, customers, and product information between Shopify and Dynamics. They want more with their integration, like product information, real-time stock on hand updates, right? Coming from Dynamics into Shopify as well. So why people need that info in Dynamics? Well, you can extend this, perhaps tapping into reports generated by these systems and funnel down all that data coming from different systems into your CRM, so that you can completely leverage CRM's reporting capabilities. You can sort of trigger email alerts, on your phones and handhelds and whatnot. So it is indeed a truly connected environment, so to speak. Lastly, I want to touch upon other aspects of some of these integrations, right? Because we are dealing with, if you're talking about QuickBooks and Shopify and Dynamics, you're dealing with customer and transactional data. Now, this data it needs to be secure, and a lot of times, this aspect of integrations is overlooked. We actually ensure a lot of importance is given to data integrity across the board, regardless of the systems, number of systems involved. Now, without good data, that is, no error data, your integration workflows or even workflows mostly built in your CRM to trigger those campaigns or email alerts, etc., become completely useless. So the workflow rules, triggers, notifications can all be configured based on the constant data push and pull between the two systems. Now, let's look what the benefits are with Shopify or integrating Shopify data with your Dynamics CRM. Now, again, the benefits won't vary too much, but we'll elaborate on that aspect. Again, one is better insights. Companies no longer want to sort of do this manual data push and pull. They don't want to be dealing with their spreadsheets or Excel sheets or exchange data across different teams. They want to be able to do more inventory adjustments or accounting adjustments, between both these systems, right?
Right, and that makes a lot of sense, Avinash. So what are some examples of what you might do once you bring orders from Shopify into Dynamics? I know you talked a little bit about it, but could you expand on that?
Yeah, good question. So when this information is present in Dynamics, your 365 CRM, you can leverage its, reporting capabilities to automate your customer journey, right? And set correct messaging based on their purchase history, buying patterns, and habits. For example, a customer who purchases from one product category versus another might be better suited for messaging around those type of items. So you can tailor your message, the messaging that you do, your marketing campaign against your customers, as opposed to have a one generic message that is going out to all the customers, right? So that's one of the advantages.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you can tailor the messaging based on what they're buying and how they're interacting with your business. But let's say you've already done that. Is there a way to know what type of messaging is resonating and working best for a customer?
Actually, there is. If you're using Dynamics and Marketing Hub, you can create multiple paths and customer journeys and put it test. Dynamics will then sort of use the built-in AI engine to determine what is best journey for a given customer.
Okay, that's really interesting. All right, so earlier we kind of touched on how customers want to update inventory from Dynamics sometimes instead of hosting that in Shopify. What would be the point of that type of integration?
A great question. So we did, I think both of us at different point in time in this session, we have touched upon it. So a lot of time folks are using Dynamics want to aggregate data between different sales channels. Connor, you did mention this. Sometimes that's B2B managed in their Dynamics versus Shopify being the channel for their B2C customers, right? Both these channels might share a common inventory, and it makes more sense to sort of manage them in Dynamics. Now, I, for the one, have actually come across various scenarios wherein they want users on either ends of the system, more so for folks, keying in these orders. They need to know their available stock, right? Now, you can determine any of these systems as a system of record, especially for stock on-hand updates. That is very critical, right? As you place orders or as these orders hit your system, there's an increment and decrement happening for a given SKU, right? And across different warehouses, it is spread. So So from a rep standpoint, if somebody is actually, king in an order, you can't possibly, create an order where, there's no stock for a given SKU. So the system, you can build these workflows which can trigger these alerts to the end users. Hey, you know what? This item is out of stock. Maybe you need to alert the other teams, the purchasing team. Maybe you need to procure more. Other parties concerned with regards to that data flow. So
Right. Yeah, so it gives them overall better visibility and, like we mentioned, decision-making power when they really know what's going on across all these different channels. So let's take a look at what a real-world example of this actually looks like. And this is actually Techman. They're a Dynamics 365 implementation partner out of the UK. So if you're a Dynamics partner, we do work with a lot of different Dynamics partners and help them facilitate these integrations for their customers. So they had come to us with an immediate need to integrate Shopify and Business Central integration for 5 different clients. Because of their timeline, they wanted to expedite training and begin working immediately on customizing our solution to fit their customers' needs. So we leveraged DBSync's cloud workflow platform with integration set up to bring Shopify orders in as Business Central orders, as well as products and customers. Now, you do have the option of choosing what the accounting transaction is that these orders will come through as. In this case, Business Central orders made the most sense. So as a result, Techman was fully trained on the DBSync platform, and we supported them throughout their own implementation of DBSync for their customers, helping them implement all 5 integrations within the first month alone. And now they're able to scale very quickly by themselves. And this is really cool. They actually gave us a nice testimonial here. And this is from Jason Tromans. He's actually the head of CRM over at Techman. And as you can see, he said, Techman has used a number of middleware tools over the years with our Dynamics 365 customers within the world of SaaS. We wanted a tool our customers could utilize without additional platform fees. As a hosted service, DBSync offers connectors to multiple apps, which has enabled our customers to create integrated solutions between e-commerce, ERP, and CRM solutions. So thanks to Techman for that. And Avinash, why don't you touch on some of the best practices for integration in general?
yeah, absolutely. So over the years, we've actually done various integrations. Like I mentioned, it's not from being ETL to actually leveraging the iPaaS capabilities in orchestrating data movement across various systems, not just between source and targets. Now we put together some of these features or some of these components where you cannot do without it. It's not a question of oh, can I get the first 3 and not have the other? Absolutely not. Each one of these is absolutely necessary, and it is paramount when you're doing integration between any system, right? So first things first, you got to document the requirement. The key to any successful integration is knowing the business requirement driving these integrations. The recommended way to approach this is to document the business and data flow in a flowchart or maybe Visio, and focus on how best to sort of improve or remove the manual touch points. When this is done, it kind of results in an increase in overall efficiency, more so in reducing human errors, which is so prevalent when you're manually keying in data. The other one is, I think we touched upon this topic, at various times in this session, is defining your master data. It is always important to define your system of record, meaning that'll drive the integration for a certain data flow, right? In any business integration, it is key to identify which system owns the data. That's what we mean by master data. This is primarily true when we look at customer master and product masters and so on, right? I'll probably narrate this with an example or two. Imagine you're trying to integrate Dynamics CRM and QuickBooks, and you're a retail organization or a retail company. Now, for all practical purposes, we've seen people tend to use QuickBooks as their system of record for all their item SKUs, and it has those inventory modules also, which tells you, the quantity on order, quantity on purchase order, etc. So in those scenarios, you can sort of tailor the integration to ensure QuickBooks is always pushing products and creating items into CRM, right? And for all other integrations, Dynamics, where all your marketing campaigns are run and all your accounts and leads are sort of stored in your CRM, that becomes the master data for those data flows. So that drives integration for customer creation and even invoice creation into QuickBooks. So this is how we define which system takes precedence over the other. So from that standpoint, defining master data again is very very important. The other one being defining triggers. Data flow requires a change trigger to sort of initiate it. So at what point do you initiate a sync or you initiate an automation? So in most scenarios, this could be something as simple as a change in timestamp, or in some scenarios people want real-time integration. As you know, some of these are cloud-based. What we carefully refer to it as near real-time and not necessarily real-time integration. So a well-defined business trigger sort of optimizes data flow, and also you're not querying the whole database, right? In turn, it sort of slows down the throughput of the overall solution. So defining triggers again is very important. And error handling is again, so when you're dealing with multiple systems and you're pushing data back and forth, error handling and messaging becomes very important. The messaging I'm referring to is strictly from a systems point of view, right? We're making these systems talk to each other and pretty much on an ongoing basis. So it is communicating with each other at all times. Sometimes, we've seen our customers can't even have a downtime of more than 5 minutes. So error handling is really important from that point of view. Imagine your Dynamics is sending data to Shopify, and that in turn is going to QuickBooks. At the source where the data is being pushed, we make sure the error is captured at the source, right? So when you're sending a request to another system, it throws back a response, and these responses are captured, and we tailor these responses with our inputs as well. So that's what we refer to as error handling. So right away, from an end user point of view, people using CRM or QuickBooks or Shopify, as soon as they look at a record, assuming that the integration has happened, they look at the system and they know right away, look, something has not gone in. A batch from Dynamics has not come into QuickBooks. And why it didn't come into QuickBooks, right? So these errors are very English-like, and you can print your own message. And that is mostly on the user side of the story. On the administration side, we trigger email notification from the system itself. That is, from our integration. So it tells the admins, look, there's something going wrong. Maybe there's no access to so-and-so system. You might want to pay attention to it, right? So this is what we refer to as error handling. Now, lastly is data mapping. Well, as you know, it's a very connected world, right? So people sort of usually have multiple ecosystems, for a given organization. So when such is the case, no two systems are same. It can't be any different. So what happens in these scenarios, take QuickBooks and CRM, for example, it is tailored to a different kind of users versus QuickBooks. It is mostly used for accounting and billing. Now, the data format and the data storage is very different compared to CRM, right? So when such is the case, it's not a mere case of, oh, I have all my Dynamics accounts, and here are all my QuickBooks customers. You just go ahead and map these attributes. It's not as simple as it seems. Sometimes the date format changes. I'm just letting you know simple examples of data transformation that is required in data mapping. So we add validations ahead of time, looking at these systems, having had the experience of working functionally on these systems. So that becomes very critical to ensure the data transfer is seamless as it can get. Now, the last two items here, it is the same with any project, let alone integration projects. However, with integration, you got to sort of take more care when it comes to testing and preparing user acceptance test cases. This we define as pre-go live. So what we do is we ensure everything is sort of done in a sandbox environment or a test environment. So, and then you get all stakeholders to sort of approve and get a sign off on your sandbox environment, and then come up with a go live date, and then go ahead in deploying the solution. Now, the last bit is post go live. This is something which we practice religiously at DBSync. We make sure once the customer goes live, the key folks involved, the business analysts, the project managers, the developers, they actually provide support for up until 2 weeks is what we've seen. We ensure we give them the post go live support before eventually they're being transitioned to standard support. So yeah, so these are some of the best practices that we kind of follow. And again, like I said, you can't miss any of these. All of these are equally important. All right. So we've tried to recap and everything that we have learned in this session. What are the key takeaways? So as you all very well know by now, these are more popular integrations, Dynamics 365 and accounting and 365 and e-commerce, and more so in our case, it is QuickBooks and Shopify respectively. The challenges are pretty similar as you saw, and even the benefits are kind of similar across the board. How you define master data, eliminating double data entry, data deduplication, and orchestrating data, and eventually avoiding or eliminating all human errors and so on, right? When all of this is sort of done properly, an integration will save you a ton of time on labor hours, give better visibility in your organization, and improve overall operational efficiency.
Perfect. Thanks, Avinash. So let's talk a little bit about what you need to do if you're interested in implementing an integration. And really, you have two options. You could do this yourself, and you may or may not even have the technical resources in your company. And if you don't, you're going to have to hire, and that's a pretty massive expense. You're going to need to pay a developer salary that's usually around 100,000 plus. You'll also need a QA resource for testing. On top of that, maintenance is key with these types of integrations, as all technology providers that we've discussed today regularly update their software and APIs. I'm sure everyone watching knows how many different versions of Dynamics they've come across. This process will take about 6 months to a year to complete compared to using an already built integration. So in contrast, if you wanted to use our team, we'd be able to get you up and running in a matter of days or weeks, depending on how complex and customized your integration is. This would be done at a fraction of the cost to do it internally, and you'd have free support. So that's very key with these integrations, is making sure you can support them over the years and not just have a resource do it, build it, who might get hired away or who might leave the company. So if you're interested in an integration, please feel free to reach out. You can reach out directly to myself. My email is connor.evans@mydbsync.com, and my number's there on the screen as well. I'd love to talk about how we can help your company save some time and money with integration. And I'd like to thank my colleague Avinash for helping out with today's webinar, and Laura and MS Dynamics World for hosting.
Absolutely, Connor. It was our pleasure to have both of you on today. Thank you so much for that great information. And know that if you did ask a question during the presentation, you can look forward to an individual response from someone from their team. And we did record today's event, and we'll be making that available as well. So thanks to everybody for their time today, and we're going to end it there. Have a great day, everyone.